What's going on, you guys? This is RBG, aka the Random Black Gamer, bringing you my video on God of War Laufey, the latest entry in the God of War series that's going to be starring Kratos' deceased wife, Faye. If you guys have been following the rumors leading up to the most recent state of play, then you knew that this game was over the horizon. There was just no surprising us here. I knew as soon as we heard that music that this was going to be about Faye, especially given the fact that we saw it from her perspective right off the rip. We saw her body being carried by Kratos in that scene from the beginning of the 2018 God of War game. And if I'm going to be honest with you guys, I initially wasn't going to make a video on this particular game, and it's not necessarily because I'm not interested in it, because on the contrary, I very much am. I am pumped to play this game, and I'm very much excited to see what's going to be in store for us with Faye, as well as some of the other elements such as Kratos and these newer characters that they're going to be introducing. We're going to be seeing an expansion of the past in North Greek mythology into a realm where deities from multiple cultures collide, which will open the door for brand new fantastical creatures and high-stake boss fights. And rather than serve as this simple prequel where the players already know the outcome of Faye's death, this story is going to run parallel to the 2018 game, where fans are going to see how her hidden journey and actions intersect with Kratos and Atreaus' adventure. So yeah, there's a lot to be excited about with this game. Once again, Santa Monica Studios is hitting us with that high production value, as well as a star-studded cast featuring the likes of a gelatinous cube who's going to be voiced by Jack Quaid from The Boys. There's a lot to like about that. But with that said, I understand why so many fans are disliking this game, and it has the community split. And it's because of the fact that this game, for the first time in GoW history, is breaking the tradition of not featuring the franchise character, that being Kratos, as the main protagonist. Given the fact that this game bears the God of War namesake, many feel like it should star the character who was once the God of War. Some simply aren't interested in a God of War game where they cannot play as the iconic Ghost of Sparta. And then there's the culture war argument, which seemed like it was imminent upon this game's reveal. We were expecting to get some toxic debates online regarding having a female protagonist in this lead role, because that's just the way it is nowadays. The internet is considered the wild wild west, and you're always going to have those cynical a-holes who think they know what's best for the culture. So yeah, like I say, I understand some of the plights that people have against this game, but I don't feel like a lot of that vitriol is warranted towards it, because the gameplay just looks amazing, man. And that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about in particular, is how this game could potentially serve as the blueprint for the upcoming God of War Trilogy remakes that are coming out. Because one of the biggest things that the longtime players are worried about is the fact that the remakes could see a major overhaul in that area that'll ultimately make it feel unfamiliar. Like, even though we have the more recent debate going on about Faye being the main protagonist of the God of War games, I gotta remind you guys that these new line of God of War games already had this negative stigma going towards them anyway, because of how distinctively different they are compared to the original line of God of War games we got, where instead of the gameplay featuring this high-speed aggressive Devil May Cry-like style that enables players to juggle their enemies in the air, the newer titles have shifted into this slower and deliberate combat style where it feels heavy and tankish. You no longer wield the ability to jump and do these aerial juggles like you used to be able to do. So to longtime veteran players of the franchise, it can feel very foreign and restrictive. Like, I'm in that camp that believes that what works in these new games absolutely works. I feel like it's a breath of fresh air to have this heavier, tankier feel for Kratos, because he's an older version of the character. But with that said, I also feel like the arcadey hack and slash style works for the younger version of Kratos, because the dude was in his prime and he was on a different time. And I know that rhymes. But yeah, our boy was just doing things that felt right for that version of the character. Those zoomed out cinematic camera angles only added more emphasis to the epic scale and massive enemy hordes you had to face. Not to mention that the older games just had this simple, if it ain't broke, don't fix it approach when it came to the level system for the weapons and power-ups, as opposed to the newer titles that introduced this intricate stat and gear management system, which some players found very convoluted and a bit grindy. Like, even though it's awesome that this game goads you to find all these different things, there's a lot that you have to find, and that can become daunting to certain players. And as you can imagine, people just weren't receptive adjustment to these changes. Even after gaining access to the Blades of Chaos, the weapons that are most commonly associated with Kratos, it still wasn't enough to give back that same nostalgic feeling that some players had playing the original trilogy. But what I find funny and a bit ironic is the fact that God of War Laufey actually does feel like a modernized version of the old games, and I'd even go so far as to say it feels like a refreshing and more organic evolution of the classic gameplay, because Faye can actually jump and she fights with this acrobatic agility and uses magic infused strikes and aerial combos. It's almost as if Santa Monica Studios found a way to perfectly marry both styles of the new and old gameplay together to come out with this hybrid system. Funny enough, if you go to the PlayStation blog and read what they said about the game's development, they mentioned that they wanted to combine the movement and fluidity of the Greek era with the Norse era's approach to the world building and close ties with the characters, and they crafted an experience that has given their team incredible opportunities to take exciting creative swings. Just reading that makes me believe that they're not only talking about this game, but they're also talking about the remakes, because I felt like if they were going to remake these games from the ground up, then they were going to need to build a new foundation for these games going forward, because the 2018 and Ragnarok gameplay was never going to fit the younger version of Kratos. But this new gameplay that features Faye will, because she's already doing things that reminds us of the young Kratos, such as spinning around in the air, doing these juggles, and also using Rue, which are the ribbons on her sword that move similar to how the chains did from the Blades of Chaos. The ground to air combat feels seamless, and it looks like it's not trying to halt you in any kind of way. You have this refined and hyper responsiveness where the combat just seems to flow constantly. It feels kinetic in a way. Like, what's crazy is that we saw a lot of combos being pulled off with just the base weaponry. So I can only imagine how that's going to be once you start to get more in your arsenal. Not only can you pwn your enemies physically, but you can also do it spiritually, since Faye can do this golden palm strike that yeets the person's soul from their body, and you can choose to attack it directly or you can knock it into other enemies. Top of that off with this gelatinous cube that's going to serve in a similar fashion as Atreaus did with Kratos, then you know you're going to have even more combos that you're going to be pulling off. But yeah, man, I just feel like this is the precursor to what we're going to be seeing with the God of War Trilogy Remake. If they're doing what I think they're doing and they use this new system, it would retroactively create a new seamless narrative bridge for these games that would connect them better, because like I say, the evolution of gameplay didn't necessarily feel organic. It didn't feel like that jump from the arcadey style of hack and slash to the new style that's more grounded. It felt very unnatural and foreign. But I'm actually more comfortable with this. Like, I don't mind if they swap the classic fixed camera hack and slash for a more intimate over the shoulder perspective that can actually transform the combat entirely into something way more cinematic, where you kind of replace certain things like the big crowds of monsters and add in some of the more weighty encounters that are going to be way more visceral. One of the best things that the new games have going for them is the framework that introduced semi-open world exploration and environmental puzzles. It didn't feel like this linear adventure, and I honestly feel like Santa Monica Studios is going to translate the Greek labyrinths like Pandora's Temple into this more modern design that would make the environments feel like a cohesive and explorable world rather than a sequence that you have to do in a combat arena or something along those lines. So yeah, if this is the direction that the studio is going to go in with these new remakes, then I'm all for it. I feel like there is so much room for improvement on both ends, and I feel like God of War Laufey is essentially going to bridge the gaps. You know, it's going to serve as this liaison between the older classic games of the Greek era to the more recent Norse mythology era. Like, after seeing this, I am confident that that's where we're going, especially after that leaked video where Christopher Judge said that they were basically taking the new gameplay and applying it to the older games.
Not a reboot, but they're going to put all the new technology in it, add more stuff, a new fighting system.
Okay.
So that will be the thesis. The original.
Sorry, who's?
The original guy.
Oh, the original. Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. And then you'll be hearing about what we're doing probably late summer.
I strongly believe that this is what he meant by that. You got to remember too, it's like Sony tapped him on the shoulder and he ended up having to redact his statement so he can throw players off the scent of what Santa Monica is really cooking up. But with all that said, I'm going to go ahead and bring the video to a close. I just thought I should make this because I am very much intrigued by this game, but that wasn't necessarily the reason why I wanted to make the video. It's just about the gameplay, man. I am more excited about the God of War Trilogy Remake more than anything, and And if these gameplay mechanics are anything to go by, then I feel like these games are going to be in good hands. They already have a solid writing team that has gotten better with time, and I feel like they're going to add even more great things to the lore of the original trilogy. But what are your thoughts on this? Do you like the gameplay for God of War Laufey? And do you feel like it's going to serve as the blueprint to the newer trilogy remakes? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, I want to ask that you like or dislike the video. It doesn't have to be a thumbs up, it can be a thumbs down. But if you really enjoyed this video, it would help me out tremendously if you shared with all your friends and followers on all the different social media outlets. Sharing is caring. But this is your boy RBG signing out on another video. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.